Hey, what's going on? Welcome back to Family Matters with Instructor Mike, where parenting isn't just about rules and routines, it's about responsibility, readiness, and raising children with emotional safety and strength. I am your host, Instructor Mike, and today's episode is one every parent needs to hear because it's not just about where you drop off your child, it's about who's picking up their spirit. Who's holding your child when teacher trauma enters the classroom? Let me take you back to a 2020 peer-reviewed study that rocked the field of early childhood education. Researchers Hubel, Davis, Witter, and others published a paper titled Adverse Childhood Experiences Among Early Care and Education Teachers, Prevalence and Associations with Observed Quality of Classroom, Social, and Emotional Climate in a peer-reviewed article called Children and Youth Services Review. So what happened? They surveyed 349 early childhood educators, preschool teachers, daycare staff, early learners, caregivers, and here's what they found. 73% of those teachers had experienced at least one adverse childhood experience, or ACE, and 22% of them had experienced 4 or more adverse childhood experiences, a level of concerned high risk for emotional and physical challenges later in life. Let me translate that because you're like, well, that's a lot. What does that even mean? That means most of the adults teaching, nurturing, and guiding small children are carrying trauma, and many are carrying a lot. But the most critical part, the researchers found a direct correlation. The more adverse childhood experiences a teacher had, the lower the quality of the emotional environment in their classroom. Please let that sink in. I'm going to say it again. The more adverse childhood experiences a teacher had, the lower the quality of the emotional environment in their classroom. So what is ACE and why should you even care? Let's talk about it. Adverse childhood experiences, otherwise called ACEs, are deeply impactful negative events that can happen well before the age 18. Things like abuse, physical, emotional, sexual, neglect, parental substance abuse, domestic violence, mental illness in the home, incarcerated family members, divorce or abandonment, and the research is overwhelming. The more ACEs a person has, the more likely they are to struggle with emotional regulation, health issues, relationship instability, parenting challenges, and, here we go, professional burnout, especially in caregiving fields like teaching. And here's the kicker. When a teacher's inner world is dysregulated, the classroom absorbs that. Now let's look at the classroom emotional climate. It's invisible but powerful. Classroom climate just doesn't mean the decorations or the lesson plans. It means the tone of voice. You heard me talk about that before. The response to perceived misbehavior that could be developmentally appropriate behavior, how conflict is handled, the presence or absence of warmth, encouragement, and empathy. From a developmental perspective, especially in early childhood, children learn more from the tone and emotional modeling than they do from direct instruction. Think about Lev Vygotsky. Think about Yuri Bronfenbrenner. Children, using the developmental science, children don't just learn from the curriculum. They learn from the context, the setting. And if a teacher hasn't done the emotional healing and education work internally, they might shame kids unintentionally, be cold or withdrawn, overreact to typical toddler behavior that may be developmentally appropriate, and they may fail to respond to and provide secure and consistent responses. And this doesn't mean they're bad people, so let's not shame them. It means they're wounded people in charge of shaping young, nervous systems. So what happens to your child in that environment? Your child may not come back home with a black eye or bruises, but the wounds of emotional dysregulation are quieter. And that's why they're invisible. You don't see it. Sudden behavior changes, increased anxiety, fear of making mistakes, withdrawn from touch or interaction, mimicking harsh tone or language, becoming overly good just to avoid conflict. When adults are emotionally volatile, children adapt, not by growing, but by protecting themselves. And that's survival mode. And children don't deserve that struggle. No child should have to survive preschool. So what can parents do? What should you do? Here's where it gets constructive. You don't need to be a psychologist or have a clipboard to advocate for your child's emotional safety. Here are some real tips. Number 1, observe the tone, not just the room. Please don't be fooled by colorful walls. Listen to how children are approached by their teachers. Listen to how teachers talk to kids. One of the things I love doing is observing these daycare classrooms, these early learning centers. I love observing them. And if the daycare where your child is at allows observations, pop in unannounced. Watch, and watch. Do they speak with them or at them? Is there warmth and patience or tension and control? And you're not going to always be able to see it when you first look at it. That's why you need to continuously look at it and observe it, document patterns, because you can have 100 great days and one bad one. And that child will remember that one bad one because they sense things. They're using their feelings, their emotions. They sense things and they do things, right? So here we go. Number 2, ask better questions. Ask better questions. Try, what kind of support do teachers receive here for their own well-being? Ooh, some teachers do not like you to ask that question. I can tell from experience. I had to whisper that. What kind of support do teachers receive here for their own well-being? How do you handle emotional outbursts or dysregulation? What's your approach to emotional literacy? You're not being nosy. You're being a qualified parent. Let's look at number 3, support trauma-informed programs. Encourage your child's center to include training that just doesn't focus on kids' trauma. There's a lot of talk about kids' trauma, but what about the adult trauma too? And tone matters when you say these things too, because sometimes they say it's not about what you say, but it's the way you say it. But I argue differently. It's what you say and the way you say it, because it both matters, right? Professional development that offers reflective supervision, burnout support, emotional intelligence training that can transform a classroom. The growth mindset. Oh, that's so beautiful. And number 4, watch your child's behavior closely. Changes in sleep, mood, or interaction patterns. These patterns matter. And if something feels off, trust your instincts. Ask your child how they feel, not just what they learned. Now, I'm going to also promote my journals. I have my journals, what my parents teach me daily, what I teach my children daily, and what I learned in school today. So why do I promote these journals? It's a journal. It's a 1-page journal. And what does that do? It gets you, after you have your conversations with your children, it gets you into journaling. Just 1 page, okay? We could just start with the habit of just journaling 1 page. And if your child can write, they can journal what they've learned too. And what does that do? It gives you a record of what was discussed. Look, you got so much going on with the things that you have going on in your life. You're not going to remember these things. But I can tell you, as educators, we have to document what we do. We got to document what we do. And when we document what we do, why? Why do we do that? We do that because we are held accountable for what we actually teach the children, because we can always be called on the carpet, so to speak, to have to account for what we teach them. It's a part of lesson planning. So in thinking about yourself as a parent, okay, and as a principal, you have to document these things so you can easily see these patterns. Let's be proactive, not reactive. You can find these on Amazon. Sorry, little sidebar here. So when I went to Amazon and I went to go look it up, because I just don't want to just talk about it, I want to just tell you where to get it or help you understand where to get it. What I teach my children daily, my daily journal. Now, these I published during COVID. I published a lot of books during COVID, and I went to go look at a review. I had a review there and didn't even know it. So the review was from Rod, and obviously a verified purchase. And this is what he said: great prompts, great product. I bought this to support the author after being inspired by some of his posts on social media. This is a good prompt journal. If you work through it, you will build a strong habit and teach your children a number of great lessons. I would recommend it to new parents. If you use the product, the value is outstanding. If you're looking at this and not sure if it's right for you, just buy it and try it, and you'll see what I mean right away. Keep up the great work. That was wonderful. So I just had to do that, because it's not enough to just do things for your children and teach them certain things, but you got to document what you're doing, right? You got to document what you're doing. Okay. So let's look at the bigger picture. It's not about blame. Let me be clear. This is not about blaming teachers, but most of them are just doing the best they can with what they have, but they were never taught about them and how to heal from those things. And parents need to be aware that it's not all adult behavior, right? Not all adult behavior is developmentally appropriate just because it's coming from an authority figure, right? Your child is too young to advocate for themselves. And if the inner child within you has not developed, the big adult can't advocate for your little one, right? So you have to do some work for yourself, and you have to encourage that your child's teacher they do the work for themselves too, right? It's your job to advocate for them, right? Here we go. This is my final thought. Your child isn't just learning ABCs. They're learning emotional norms. Make sure they're in a room led by someone who has done their healing homework. Don't just drop off your child and hope for the best. If you care, right? Let's ask questions, stay involved, pay attention to the emotional energy, and document patterns, because trauma is quiet, but it is not invisible, and your child deserves a better classroom. Okay, you don't want your child to be in a classroom clouded by unhealed storms. This is Family Matters with Instructor Mike, and you've been trained. If this episode helped you see and help you to see something that you hadn't noticed before, right? We talked about experiential blindness and unintentional blindness. If you haven't been directed and redirected to see something, it could be in front of your face and you wouldn't even know. And if you haven't experienced it, but you don't have the knowledge or a more knowledgeable other to guide you and scaffold on top of what you already may see, right? You may not know, you may not have the education to be able to help your child. If this has meant something to you, share it with a fellow parent. And if you're an educator, I love you. This is for you too. Healing is hard, but it's that sacred work. I'll see you next time. Oh, but before I go, you can purchase this journal. It's not expensive. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say what's expensive or what's not expensive, but if you go to Amazon.com and you look up what I teach my children daily, my daily journal, and even if you put in the name Mike Brown, it'll pop up. It's $7.16. $7.16. I make my stuff super, super affordable. Now, one of these journals is only supposed to last 30 days. Just start off with one and see what it does. I'm going to do a special podcast episode on these journals. These things are just too important not to use, okay? And if you want to get your child into journaling, if they're able to write what my parents teach me daily, my daily journal, and what I learned at school today. And that one, what I learned at school today, would be so important because we're not just talking about the subjects of what they've learned. We're also talking about what they've experienced at school too. You want them to document that so they can start to have agency in using their own words. We are going to do a podcast episode about that. That stuff is so important. I'll see you on the next episode. Ooh, I hope you find value in these. These are the things that I wish I learned from years ago. Oh, I'll see you on the next episode. Bye.